we go. This was last Monday. There's always one day of the week that's the first day that everything starts ending. This is last Monday, next Monday, Yom Yerushalayim, Monday after that, Shavuot. This was your last class day of Monday. And that's always a sign that stuff is ending here and things are coming to a close. So that's what we're going to talk about. All right. Yitti, I see you came. You can't see your fiance, for a week now. So now you show up here. We're Yitti's backup plan. Now listen, today is the 21st of Iyar. The 21st of Iyar is the day after the 20th of Iyar. The 20th of Iyar is mentioned in the Torah. In Sefer Bamidbar, Perek Yud, Pasuk Yud Aleph, it says, Bashana HaShenit, in the Jewish people in their second year out of Egypt, B'chodesh HaSheni, in the second month, that is Iyar, B'esrim B'chodesh, in the 20th day of that month, what did they do? Vayisu B'nei Yisrael L'Masa'ehem Mimidbar Sinai. That is the calendar date when the Jewish people left Har Sinai. The 20th of Iyar yesterday, that's the day the Jewish people left Har Sinai. Rashi explains that we learn from here that after Matan Torah, after the Har Sinai experience, the Jewish people stayed around Har Sinai for almost a year, and then they left. Then they went on their way. And it's always crazy that it's this time of year that as we're kind of counting down to Matan Torah, at the same time, this date reminds us that we're also counting down to the time when a lot of you all are basically saying goodbye to Har Sinai and almost a year of Torah learning that you did. Now the Medrash Lekach Tov says that every time the Torah mentions a date attached to a particular event, it means that something special happened on that date, that event is something special. He says, it's Kol Parasha HaKadosh Baruch Hu Megadel et Yisrael. Every time that Hashem makes the Jewish people great, the date is noted in the Torah. And the question is, what is so great about the date that the Jewish people left Har Sinai, the 20th of Iyar, that it's mentioned in the Torah? What's so special about that date? How did the Jewish people become great on the 20th of Iyar? The Medrash Lekach Tov gives an answer, but it's a very cryptic answer. He says that this is also, they did something here, Bepam Harishon. It's something that they did for the first time, was on that 20th of Iyar when they left Har Sinai. But what is it that they did on the first time? That's in the Medrash HaGadol explains that this was the first time that the Jewish people traveled, and when they traveled, they used flags. That's the big deal. That's what happened on the 20th of Iyar, that the Jewish people in their camps, for the first time, they traveled with every shevet, every tribe having its own flag. And what does everybody ask? What's the big deal? Why is this a date that is noted? What's so special about the Jewish people traveling with flags? And for this, we have to understand, where did the Jewish people get the flags in the first place? How did they invent flags? Where did those flags come from? The Medrash says as follows, that when the Jewish people were at Har Sinai, they saw the angels coming down, and each angel held a flag. And the Jewish people said, we want flags like the angels have flags. And Hashem says, if you want flags, I'll give you flags. And that's how the Jewish people got flags. From the angels. They copied the angels. But the big question now that everybody asks is, what are angels doing running around with flags? And why do Jewish people want those flags so much? Now I'm going to tell you a story. You're a British person. I want to tell you something. America, there was a war in America back in the day called the Civil War. That's the North versus the South. Yeah, you heard about such a thing? I don't know. American people, they never heard of War of the Roses, so it's legitimate if you don't know about our wars. But there you go. That's a civil war in America. In the Civil War in America, it was the North versus the South. You know what was the capital of the South? Capital of the South was what? Who's American in the audience here? What was the capital of the South? Richmond, Virginia was the capital of the South. Richmond, Virginia happens to be where I was rabbi of Richmond, Virginia. For 10 years, I was rabbi there. I visited, when I was there, the White House of the Confederacy, where Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederate States of America, governed the southern states. Even to this day, there's Jeff Davis Highway running through Richmond, Virginia, named after the president of the Confederacy. I'll tell you another thing that you got in Virginia. Richmond, Virginia, only place on planet Earth that has an all-Jewish military cemetery outside of Israel. You know, like Arlington Cemetery, where you have, there's a bunch of crosses, then there's a Magen David mixed in, Jewish people, they get mixed in there. The only all-Jewish military cemetery outside of Israel in Richmond, Virginia. Jewish Confederate soldiers. It's a small little cemetery, smaller than this room, that's there. Now I'm going to tell you what happened. In my shul, I had a guy, he was all about Civil War history. So one Sunday I say, come on, show me the battlefields. We're driving around Richmond, he's showing me battlefields. We meet up with a guy who's a Civil War reenactor guy. Yeah? They dress up as soldiers and they shoot each other and they reenact battles. That's what they do. All right, I don't know, it keeps them out of trouble. I go to this guy and I say, I have a question for you. I know in the Civil War, when the troops are marching, there's always this one guy. And what's that one guy's job? To hold a flag. And it's a big, big flag. He got to hold it with two hands. Sometimes you see in these paintings, right? That guy with the flag. I told him, you got to explain to me, what's the point of this guy carrying a big flag into battle with two hands? Everybody's shooting all around him. What's the point of the flag? It's a question. You know what he explained to me? Now you'll understand why flags are important. He says, because in battle, people are shooting, there's chaos, people get hurt, people screaming, there's smoke, all kinds of stuff going on. Complete chaos. If a guy falls down and he gets up and he gets all turned around and he's like, I don't know where I'm at anymore. I don't know where's my people at. So what does he look around for? That flag. And when he sees that flag, he says, oh, that's my team. That's what I belong to. That's my guys. And then he gets himself over to that flag. That's why people carried flags into battle. Why did angels carry a flag? You know why angels carry a flag? Because a flag shows who you are, what team you're on, and what you stand for. When the Medrash says that every angel has a flag, you know what that means? That what does every angel know 100%? I know what my purpose is. I know what my mission is. I know what I'm supposed to do. That means I have a flag. You know this, right? You ever learn every angel has one job, right? Some of the angels, even their name, Raphael. Okay, I'm in charge of refuah. Okay, that's... When the Jewish people saw the angels with that flags, why do they want flags? They say, we want to feel like the angels feel. We want to be 100% clear on what our purpose is. What side are we on? What is our mission? Who do we belong to? The Jewish people wanted that sense of security, of knowing what they stand for. And that's why they asked for the flags. And that's why the Torah records this date. Because what's the greatness of the Jewish people on this date? That they started using flags, that they all felt, I know 100% what I stand for, what represents me, what I'm part of. Now I'm going to tell you something. When you go out there after Harova, you've been here for a year, MTA, half a year. Fine, MTA. But the rest of you northern folk, you've been here a whole year, you're going out, you know where you're going out into? Some kind of Civil War battlefield. You're going out into chaos and mayhem. There's going to be smoke, there's going to be people injured, there's going to be people screaming. Sometimes you're going to get turned around. And what are you going to need to know? Where am I? What's my deal? What am I doing? What are you going to need? You're going to need some kind of a flag. You're going to need to have a flag. Say, this is what I stand for. This is what I represent. I'm telling you something. You know what happens at the beginning of the year? At the beginning of the year, there's kids sitting in class, and I say to them, hey, what's your name? So some kid says a name. Let's say Janice. I don't think there's anybody here named Janice. We'll get a safe name. So I say, Janice. I say, Janice, what's your deal, Janice? I would ask that to kids in the beginning of the year. What's your deal? And you know what happens? These kids say, I don't know. Wait, I don't know what you mean by that. What does that mean, what's your deal? What's your deal? It means what do you stand for? What are you about? What's important to you? But then everyone in the beginning of the year, oh no, I don't know what my deal is. Then what I have to say, okay, so where are you from? Then they say Tina. Conversation ends right there. Where are you going to go with that? Oh, what, so you eat bagels? There's nothing to say anymore. I want to tell you something. Those of you in the beginning of the year who did not know what your deal is, I hope that by now you do know what your deal is. That you do know what is important to you, what is significant for you, what is it that you represent. And you all got to have that flag that you say, that's me. That's what I'm connected to. Now I'm going to tell you something. When they bring that flag into battle, when they bring that flag out into the war there, in the beginning, that's a real nice flag. They took it out of the box, it was folded up, whatever. But what's going to happen to that flag in battle? Sometimes it gets ripped up. Sometimes it gets dirty. Sometimes it gets smoky. Gets ruined, that flag, a little bit. Now I'm going to tell you something. The Torah says that a Kohen, the Melech, the king has to write a Sefer Torah. And you know this. What is the king supposed to do with that Sefer Torah that he writes? Yeah, he has to carry it with him all the time, right? And consult it and learn it. When the Torah talks about the king's Sefer Torah, you know what the Torah says? That he has to write Mishneh HaTorah Hazot. That's the language, Mishneh HaTorah. Mishneh has the connotation of a second. So based on this, the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin says that how many Sifrei Torah does the king have to write? 2 Sifrei Torah. Now one he carries with him. What does he do with that other Sefer Torah? What does he do with that other Sefer Torah? The Gemara says he puts it Beit Ginzav. Beit Ginzav is treasure house. With the crown jewels, with all the special treasure stuff, behind some kind of plexiglass in a safe. That's what he does with the second Sefer Torah. And you know what everybody asks? What's the point of that second Sefer Torah that's locked away in a safe? The one you carry with you, I get it. You look at it, you consult. What's the point of the one in the safe? I'm going to tell you what's the point of the one in the safe. Because you know that what could make a Sefer Torah puzzle? If even one little bit of one letter got rubbed out, that Sefer Torah is puzzle. So what is the king going to have to do every so often? When he takes that Sefer Torah with him, and he's consulting that Sefer Torah, and he's looking at that Sefer Torah, what happens every so often to that Sefer Torah? There's a dust storm, there's wind, there's rain, and there might be a little bit of puzzle on that Sefer Torah. So what does that king have to do every so often? He goes to that safe. He unlocks it, opens it. What's in that safe? A pristine, pure Sefer Torah. And what is he then able to do? Open up his Sefer Torah, check it against that pristine, preserved, locked away Sefer Torah, and he can correct his Torah based on the one in the safe. Now I'm going to tell you something what to do. You all need a flag. You all need a Sefer Torah. I'm going to say like this. You got 3 weeks left here, however much time you got. I'm going to say you think for a bit about what kind of stuff is really, really important to you. What kind of stuff do you say, I better be continuing these things into the future? What right now have you thought in your head are the red lines that you do not want to cross and you do not want to get even near those red lines? Everybody here is going to be different. Some people say, I want to keep up davening. I want to keep up learning every day. I want to make sure the way I speak, I don't want to say certain things anymore. I want to get along, whatever it is. And I'll tell you what you're each going to do. Each one of you, you write down your own personal Sefer Torah. You take a piece of paper and you say, these are the things that I thought about that are important to me, and you write that down. These are the things that I do not want to be doing anymore. These are the things I do not want to go back to. These are the things I want to continue. You write that down. And what are you going to do with that paper? I don't know. I would say, you know what's a good thing to do with that paper? You put it in a drawer somewhere. And then maybe once a month, maybe every Rosh Chodesh. Or if you're going to be in a situation where you have no idea when Rosh Chodesh is, maybe the first of the month. You take out that letter. You take out that list that you said of what are the things that are important to you. You read that over and you remind yourself, these are the things that I myself said are important to me. It's not some rabbi who's a zillion years older than you, who doesn't know your life, who doesn't know what's going on with you, who's telling you these things. It's you yourself. These are the things that you yourself decided are important to you, and then you take that out of your treasure house, that drawer, and every month you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, I remember when I felt that way. And then you just reorient yourself a little bit, and you fix those little letters on that Sefer Torah that got a little bit rubbed out. If you want to be high tech, if you want to be Gen Z, then you know what you could do? There you go. Then you know what you could do? You can make a little video of yourself, yeah? Video of yourself, say, hey, this is past Janice. This is Janice from the past. I just went through a year being in the old city. I've been davening at the Kotel. I've been in this environment. This is past Janice. I want to talk to future Janice. And I want to remind future Janice, these are the things that are important to you. These are the things that you yourself decided are important. And you look at that kind of stuff. And then you remember these kind of things. And even if you're somewhere in a place where everybody's holding weird flags, there might be holding some kind of bear cat flag. Everyone's screaming and holding those flags. But you'll know you got a different kind of flag. You have your own flag. It's private. It's in that drawer or it's on your phone, that little video. But you know what you stand for, and you're going to constantly be able to remind yourself of those things that you know and you decided are important to you. Now I'll tell you a story. This story has a title. This is the story of the deer hunters. Now this is back in the day. I was a rabbi in Richmond, Virginia. And you know what I would do? I would check the answering machine before Shabbos and before Yontif. I would check the answering machine. This is old school. You had to press the button, and there was like a number. It said how many, and you press it, and it would say, just in case someone left a message. Maybe they need something. I don't know. Anyway, one time I go to the shul, and it's Erev Simchas Torah. And there's a message on the answering machine. I press play. People say, hey, listen, we need help. What's the help? They say, we were driving down from New Jersey to Florida. We hit a deer on the way. Going down I-95, our car got completely totaled, and we are stuck here in Richmond. We're in a gas station where they towed our car to. We cannot get back to New Jersey in time for Yontif. We cannot get to Florida in time for the Yontif that we intended. We need help. Well, I said, hey, 4 of you people, you're stuck over there. We'll take you in for Yontif. It's going to be fine. We'll find people like Achnasas Orchim, Richmond, people love that kind of stuff. We'll take you all in. So I go to the gas station and I find these 4 people there, 4 Rutgers students. They were all dressed exactly the same. 2 boys, 2 girls. Each one of them wearing sweatpants and a kind of undershirt, what we would call back in Brooklyn a wife beater. Yeah, you know, those no sleeves kind of things. All 4 of them, the same kind of outfit, yeah? They look like backup dancers in some kind of J-Lo video, these people. I say, all right, guys, What's your deal? They say, we were driving down. One of them says, I can't use their names because this stuff goes on the internet. One of them says, we're driving down, my grandma, she let us use her apartment. She's away for Yontif. She says we could come use her apartment over Simchas Torah. And I'm thinking, God only knows what you had planned for this Yontif in grandma's empty apartment. To defile grandma's apartment. Anyway, they come. I put up the 2 boys in one person's house, the 2 girls in someone else's house. But now listen to this. Richmond is a small town. You know what we'd have this program called YU Torah Tours. I don't know if you ever heard of this thing. So YU and Stern have this thing where they take a whole bunch of students and they send them to far off, like little towns, to help make like happiness on Simchas Torah. Make it joyful. So they send us a group, I don't know what it was, 6 boys, 6 girls from Stern, YU. Okay, so we got this group, plus the 4 Rutgers kids, yeah? So then my wife says, okay, we're gonna have them all over for Yontif. So we have them all over, plus we invited the local kids who were kind of the same age, you know? We had 22 guests for dinner on Simchas Torah. Now, I will say there was a bit of an incident before Yontif, because one of the families that was hosting these Rutgers kids, they called me up, they're like, listen, there's a boy and a girl, they're on our front porch, and we have little kids at home, this is not okay. And I drove over there and I had to tell them, I said, listen, I don't know what you had planned for this weekend, but your plans have changed. And there's a small town, people got little kids, people have conservative small town values, you gotta act normal here. And they're like, okay, very good. And I'll say something that over the course of this Yontif, it was like the perfect storm of a great, great Yontif. Somehow the YU and Stern Torah Tourist kids got along great with the Rutgers kids and the local kids, and everyone's having just a fantastic Yontif. I will tell you for real, out of the YU Stern kids, two couples were formed and got married from that Yontif. My wife told me halfway through, she says, that girl, she's got her eyes on, she's gonna bag that kid. And she did. She did. But these kids, oh, now listen to this. Now I'll tell you a story. In my shul, we had 2 Kohanim in the shul. One guy, Paul Cohen. Paul Cohen, really, really old. You know how old he was? He was in jail for selling moonshine. Back when, you couldn't have liquor in this. He was so old, he couldn't lift up his hands. So he couldn't do duchening anymore. He couldn't do birkat kohanim. That's halacha. If you're too weak, you can't do it. Can't lift up your hands, can't do it. So there was another Kohen called Bernie Kaplan. Bernie Kaplan, he was older, but he was big and strong and robust. He was our Kohen. Now what happened was, back then, what I used to do is I'd go to all these communal events, and then I'd find people who are not so frum, and I'd become friendly with them, and then I'd say, how about you come to my shul? And then I'd poach them, and then they'd come. One guy, Robert Cohen, I said, fully grown adult man, grown up with kids, and what? I say, Robert Cohen, you're a Cohen, right? He says, yeah. I said, you got a duchen. He said, I never duchened in my life. He was a fully grown, he's in his 40s, never duchened in his life. Because he always went to reform or something where they don't do duchening because it's classist, I don't know, whatever they have. I say, I'm going to teach you how to duchen. So he would duchen, him and Bernie together, 2 Kohanim. Listen to what happened on this Yontif. Bernie wasn't around. Bernie went to spend Yontif with his kid, lived in Seattle or something. So Bob Cohen was the only Cohen. I said, Bob, you got to duchen, man. He's like, I never duchened alone. I can't do this. I can't be in front of the entire shul duchening. I can't do it. I'm like, Bob, if you don't do it, there's no one's going to get a bracha from Kohanim. That's it. It's good. It's chutz la'aretz. We only have this on Yontif, man. Well, one of the Rutgers kids was a Kohen. Now this kid, he had, I said, any of you a Kohen? And they said, yeah, this guy's a Kohen. He's like, yeah, he says, I haven't duchened in years. I'm like, I don't care that you haven't duchened in years. You better duchen now. Because if you don't duchen with Bob, then he can't do it himself, and the whole thing is going to fall apart. And then he sort of agreed, but then he had because he was like some punk kid from Rutgers. He had like an earring in his eyebrow. You know what I'm talking about? You know that thing? I said, listen, man, you cannot duchen with that thing in your eyebrow. You cannot duchen. I told him, because there's a rule in Masechet Megillah that if a Kohen looks weird, then it's not okay to duchen because it will distract the audience. Now, he's covered with a talus, but, I just like, he can't walk in shul. I just want him to take the thing off. So I told him, and then he agrees, whatever, and he duchens. Okay, and he saved duchening. And then this yontif ended, and it was just a remarkable, beautiful yontif. Now, I'm going to read you something. Here's an email. This is an email from 2006. Hi, Rabbi Rowan. I don't know if you remember me. My name is blah, blah, blah. I'm writing on behalf of this. We're the ones who 5 years ago hit a deer and ended up spending Simchat Torah with you and your community. That yontif made such an impact on all of our lives. She wrote me this 5 years after, right? Okay, great. She says, so much has happened in the past 5 years. One of the guys made Aliyah. In fact, that was the Kohen. The Kohen made Aliyah. I ran into him one time in the old city. He moved to Israel and he became a tzanchen. That's what happened to him. Yeah. She says, we want to apologize for anything inappropriate that we might have caused over that yontif. That was the porch, I told you that. Okay. All right, so we're writing back and forth a little bit. And I say, everything's good, what's going on with you? Now look what she writes now. It's a few emails later. She says, listen, as for this guy, who was her boyfriend at the time, I said, hey, come visit me in Israel. It would be nice to see you again. She says, I don't think he's going to be able to do that for a couple of years. Let me explain. In May of 2002, he moved to Denver. While he was there, he fell into the wrong crowd. Everything was fine for a while, but in late 2003, he was arrested for robbery. Shortly after that, I stopped talking to him. It was just too painful. Okay. Then they started talking again. Turns out, he is now in a rehabilitation unit of the prison. Okay, that's good. It's called therapeutic community. And listen to what he says. He says, the boy, the kid in prison, he really does feel connected to you both. He is constantly telling me, this is 5 years later, how his goal is to bring us back to the level we were at on that Simchas Torah. He felt more connected to Judaism that yontif than practically any other time in his life. I want to tell you something what happened here. There was a bunch of people that had a very beautiful, inspiring spiritual experience together. And they all experienced that same experience. But years later, one of them winds up at Tzanchen in Israel, the other one in a jail in Colorado for drug-related armed robbery. My friends, all of you here in this room, you've been through an exciting, uplifting spiritual year at Midreshet Harova. What's going to happen next in the upcoming years? There's all kinds of paths out there to take, all kinds of choices to be made. And that's up to you. Sometimes I think of the Rebbeim and the teachers at Midreshet Harova. You know what we're like? We're like a coach on a basketball team. And we can do some practice with you. Let's practice Let's practice being quiet a little bit. Let's practice layups. Let's practice foul shots. Let's do drills. But then ultimately, there's going to be a game to be played. And in that game, the coach can't play on that game with you. The coach puts you all there and says, look, we taught you. But now game time, you figure this out. You make this happen. You apply it all. I'm going to tell you another thing. When I read about this kid and he wants to go back to that Simchas Torah from 5 years ago, honestly, it's a little bit sad. Because, you're trying to recapture something from so long ago? That's what you're doing in life, trying to recapture some old thing? You can't be doing that. That should have been a springboard that's taking you even further. All of you sitting here, 19, 18, whatever you are, this is not something to try to recapture. This is not even something to try to maintain. What do you want to be? Some kind of 35-year-old woman out there and saying, oh, I want to be at the level I was when I was 19? What are you talking about? When you're 19, listen, I know you think you learned, you're a bunch of pipsqueaks, okay? Honestly, you know barely anything about barely anything, all right? You're going to learn a lot as life goes on. And what you're going to do from here, you got to springboard from this. This is your starting point, and you just continue from here. And you just grow from here. And you come back and you visit 10 years from now, and you're like, my gosh, when I was here in Harova, I was just a little kid. I can't believe it. But look where I am today. That's where you have to be. And the way to do that is to remember where you are right now. Like I told you, that letter or that video, and just that's your starting point, and you move on for after that. Now let's talk about something else. Let's talk about keeping in touch. Now, my friends, listen. Number one rule is if you want to keep in touch, you keep in touch. Now, what does that mean? If 5 years from now something comes up and you're like, I got to talk to somebody about this. I want to talk to my old mashgicha. That's who I want to talk to. Or I want to talk to some teacher of mine or some such thing. And then you're like, oh my gosh, but I didn't talk to them for 5 years. This is going to be real awkward. I'm telling you right now, it's not. There is not one teacher that I know who gets a message from some kid and says, well, I don't hear from you for 5 years. Now you're in a jam. You call. No one says that. Wait, now you call. No one says that. People are happy to hear from you no matter when you reach out. So I'm telling you now, never, ever be embarrassed to reach out to any person and for any reason. I'll tell you a secret. You don't even have to do the thing where you write, hey, how are you? Just get to it. Just say, I put the milchik spoon in the roast beef. What am I supposed to do now? Yeah? I like it. People send me, they say, hi, Rav Ron. And then I send back that waving emoji. What are we supposed to do with this? Just say the thing. Just say, it's okay. You can do that. Good. Now, having said that, if you're a person that you want to keep in touch, and you say, hey, I want to keep in touch. How do you keep in touch? I will tell you how you keep in touch. Your relationship now with your teachers is you're students and we're teachers, yeah? But you know what's going to happen? You're going to grow up. You're all going to go to school. You're going to get some kind of job. You're going to be moms. You're going to have kids, right? And then the relationship changes, right? Then you're people and we're people and we're just people. We're just people and we're talking, and that's okay, right? And if you want, but this is up to you, if you want, you can keep in touch. You know what you can just do? You're walking down the street. This is why Yitti, I think the other day, I was walking down the street and I saw a very big snail. And I sent a picture of a very big snail to Yitti. Then the other day, I saw another very big snail, and I sent it to it was a different snail. And this time I included my finger so you could see how big that snail was. I am telling you something. You know who created big snails? Hashem created big snails. And then sometimes you're wondering, Hashem, why did you make such a big snail? Do we really need that big of a snail? And you know what the answer is? Because when people see an abnormally large snail, they want to share that with somebody else. So when you see a big snail, that's your opportunity. You take a picture of that snail and you send it to some of the old teachers here at Midreshet Harova, and you say, I saw this snail and I got to thinking about you, and I want to share this with you. I'm telling you, you could use anything on God's green earth to keep in touch, yeah? You're like, hey, I heard a joke. Here's a joke, you want to hear it? Hey, look at this. Look at this car. It's lime green. Hey, all kinds of stuff, whatever you want. And I know some of you are thinking, do I really need to keep in touch? Is it really that important? Can't I just go on with my life and ignore you all? So I'm going to tell you something. In life, sometimes people need a rabbinic, halachic figure in your life. Yeah? You know, you need a car mechanic you can trust. You need a doctor you can trust. There's a team. People need some kind of rabbi person in life. It's good to have one. And I'm going to even tell you another thing. Irrelevant of a rabbi, halacha, question kind of person, you know what it's good to have in life, for real? A grown-up person who is separated from your day-to-day existence. Sometimes something comes up and you're like, something happened. One guy I just heard from, he said something happened at work and this was the interaction. Was I a jerk or was that guy the jerk? And he's just bouncing it off of me. Has nothing to do with Torah, nothing to do with halacha, but you know, I'm a couple of decades older than this kid, and I've been around, and he doesn't want to talk about it to his parents. He doesn't want to talk about it to his wife. He wants an outside person, just bounce it off of, yeah? It's not bad to have an adult in your life that's outside of the circle that you say, I have to say this to somebody, but I don't want to say it to anyone close, right? Sometimes there's things like that. And you have that person. Now I'll tell you a final story. One time, I think I might have told you this story. Did I tell you ever the story about the ingrown toenail? All right, well, it's a good thing we had this time together then. One time there was a guy, I'm going to say his name. One time there was a guy in my shul. His name is Rich Goldberg. Now, Rich Goldberg, I still learn with him Mishnah Berurah once a week over Zoom together. Anyway, me and Rich Goldberg, we would work on the shul bulletin together. Back in the day, it wasn't on internet. You would have a physical thing that had like a fold-out calendar, and it had a message from the rabbi and all kinds of stuff. And me and him would sit and put it together, and we would pick fun clip art to put in. Okay. Well, one time I'm at Rich's house, and he had his daughter. She must have been, I don't know, maybe she was 4 years old. 4, maybe 5, I don't know. She comes over, and she's like, Abba, my toe hurts. And he says, you got an ingrown toenail, we gotta cut it. And she's like, I don't want you to cut it. He's like, Ima will cut it. She says, I don't want Ima to cut it. And then I said, I'll cut it. I said, we're working on the bulletin now. Fill a thing of warm, soapy water, soak your foot. When we're done, I'll cut your ingrown toenail. Well, she soaked her foot, and then I cut her ingrown toenail. You know, at her bat mitzvah in shul, years later, at her bat mitzvah, she gets up, and in her speech, she says, I want to thank my parents, thank that, and I want to thank Rabbi Ron for cutting my ingrown toenail. Now, what does that demonstrate to you? Sometimes you need another person. Parents, I don't want you touching my toes, it might hurt, but you take an outsider, it works out a little bit better. There you go. Now, my friends, listen, let's sum up what we talked about today. What we said today is that things are coming to a close a little bit. And I'm telling you, just get it down on paper. Just write it down for yourself, what's important to you. So you really clarify that. Put it somewhere, look at it. make a video, something. Just remind yourself where you are. Remind yourself where you are. You think if that boy wrote down on a piece of paper, you think he would have wound up in jail in Colorado? All right. And also, really, really, never be embarrassed to reach out. And it would be lovely, always lovely to hear from you if you want to keep in touch. All right, see you later.